Hi folks, and welcome back to the vlog. This week we have the magnificent Rachael Mia Allen in the house. Yoo! Hi Rach.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. Rachel's going to give us her 3 pro tips on the things she wished she knew when starting out or along the way as she learned. So with no further ado, let's kick off with your first one. Is it okay to be different? Rachael, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yes, I would say definitely. I have danced to my own tune. I went against my school teacher who said, "You are never going to go anywhere with this. Give it up now," and went to Falmouth anyway. And then I ran with an unconventional use of medium. I paint with printing ink. When I've looked back on the benefit, the pros and cons of that, there was nobody to refer to. I didn't know of anybody else using this medium, so I was making up the rules as I went along. You have, mistakes and trial and error and the whole thing of it. But I just grew in confidence, and not having that rule, right. it made a big difference to me.
How did you, when you first started with it, because this is a really thick, glutinous subject.
Well, this painting here, that was from my time at Falmouth. So that actually was from my very first week in the print room. And that is where I got that roller in my hand and thought, oh my God, this feels like me, So it's gloopy, it's all kinds of things. And I sort of went down kind of an abstract route to start with.
Yeah.
And then many years later, I came back to it again. And I just started to paint kind of recognizable images. There was no real mixing involved. I have to say they were quite crude. Green out of the tube was a bit lurid.
Right.
Over the years, I've really developed the mixing, and I've played bringing other mediums into it, but it's one of those things. One, it feels me, it's recognizably me. I think if you see a piece of my work, well, certainly the feedback I've had is, I know that's your work.
Yeah, absolutely, no question.
And I guess I was mindful of it. It wasn't the driving force, because the love of that medium was the driving force for me always.
When you use this ink, I mean, you're putting it onto paper, I believe, aren't you? And then paper can lift up and it must get gooey.
But I found ways around that. I started heating the ink up with mats, and so that I could get some flow going. I work on different surfaces. I work on a very heavy base card, because I know quite a lot about papers now. The nature of the ink, if you can imagine molasses and the roller, as you get the moisture, it will actually start separating some papers, and then you can literally get to the end of a painting and all of a sudden a bubble appears. And there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing. And I've had those moments, and I've tried cutting it finally with a blade and filling it with glue and smush. Oh my, I've tried everything, it's game over.
So what happens in those, going on to your second point now, what happens in those moments where you get a block, where you just cannot move on? For you, how does that feel, and how do you get through it?
I have had blocks of almost, well, not far off a year, right. Which is a long time. Yeah. And I mean, at that point in my life, I had horses, so I did have another outlet. Right. I learned along the way, don't sweat it, it will come back. Sometimes I come up here and, I literally have just laid on my yoga mat and thought, I don't think I'm going to paint today. I just haven't got it in me. And that's okay, a bit of reading. But interestingly enough, as soon as I've had that thought and let it go, I find myself painting. Right.
So you're finding it's becoming easier, you're understanding your block better when they happen.
I'm a bit kinder to myself, I think.
I read a book called Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way.
Yes, I know.
You've read it. And that feeling about that you have to also take time out to play. You have to get away and treat yourself, and it's not just about working. Yes, it's about working, but it's also about treating, as you are saying, your personal life and your private life and your own space truthfully as well.
Absolutely. I think that ultimately, I mean, I am painting, views that I'm seeing. I'm going out to the coastline, or I'm up on the moors and I'm taking photographs, and I'm inspired by that. And I have an extensive folder of photos. I mean, on iCloud, but over 40,000 photos.
Which brings us on to this last subject, which is your head or your heart. How do you, when you've got all that body of stuff that you've done and everything else, what determines where you're going to go with this?
This is a really interesting one, because some galleries are happy to go with the flow on what you're producing. Others are, I want it like this. I want a blue painting and I want this, that and the other. And you know, when you're young and you kind of want to please everybody and you want them to have what they want and you feel you have to do those things, that is probably going to steer you more towards your head. Right. If you're doing that. It's when you come in, and I think when I moved to Ding Dong and I had the studio there, I completely fell in love with that landscape all over again. You know, it was so familiar to me because I'd grown up down there and I'd ridden over there as a child and all of that moorland. But I was kind of aware that, you know, it was still sort of, it was landscape, but people really gravitated towards my seascapes. And there was this mental moment where I thought, you know, are people still going to love what I do? But I really was passionate about what I was doing. People wanted it anyway. That was what I took from that. Just do what really makes you on fire. I don't think it matters what you paint, or my experience for me is it doesn't really matter what you paint, as long as you've been passionate about it, really switched on to that moment, somebody is going to connect with that.
To a certain extent, if you are painting from your heart and the way you enjoy it, you're going to have a lot more longevity in the industry rather than painting from what you think other people might want from you.
Listen, it's so easy to swing into that. I had to pull myself up the other day. I had a moment and I just thought, what are you doing? Find what it is that's really resonating for you. Forget about whoever's out there who you think is going to buy that. Forget that. And as soon as you let that go, a whole stream opens up for you, or for me, you know, I feel that. I've done that so many times, and I know that's the truth, and I still fall into the trap, but I can see the hole, you know, and for the most part, I can see it at a distance and walk around it, but occasionally I think, oh, you fell in the hole again.
Falling back in again, oh dear. Rachel, these have been absolutely brilliant tips. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that last one, especially. I think that's going to help a lot of people who are struggling with, you know, where am I, what am I doing? Passion is where it lies for an artist, and if you lose the passion, I guess, you know, that's the end of it all. So great stuff. Well, folks, I'm going to leave you with some absolutely superb work from Rachel video. We'll be back next week, and thanks so much, Rachel. Great to see you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.